Are you the kind of person who'd stay quiet if someone destroyed your property in broad daylight? Yeah, I'm not that kind of person either. But when I saw what had happened in my backyard that morning, I swear to God, I had to blink twice. There it was, a 50-year-old oak tree, the pride of my landscape, cut clean at the base. Gone. Just a jagged stump left like some sick joke. I wasn't confused. I wasn't sad. I was furious. And when I found out who did it, I called 911 because that's when things got real. Don't scroll away. Trust me, she regretted everything the moment the cops pulled up. If you've ever had to deal with a HOA Karen, you know they don't just cross boundaries. They bulldoze through them and expect applause. If this makes you mad already, do me a favor. Hit the like button and drop a comment where you're watching from. You're going to want to stay for this. It started that Saturday morning, just after 9 a.m. I walked outside with my coffee, planning to tackle some weekend chores, clean the gutters, maybe wash the truck. But one glance toward the side yard stopped me cold. My chest tightened. I spilled coffee on my shirt without noticing. The tree was gone, not trimmed, not pruned. Gone. Felled like a battlefield casualty. Its thick trunk lay split and sawed into segments, stacked like firewood near the fence. The branches were piled on a rented flatbed trailer parked half on the grass. There was even a faint scent of gasoline in the air. Fresh chainsaw work. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. That oak had been on my property since before I bought the place. My home sat on a corner lot, and the tree stood just a few feet inside the survey line. It was healthy, rooted deep. I'd spent a chunk of change getting it professionally inspected last year after a storm. The arborist had said it was strong and safe. Who the hell would... Then I heard the voice. Oh, good, you're home. I was going to leave a note. I turned to see her walking up my driveway in white sandals and a wide-brimmed hat, clipboard in hand. Diane McMullen, HOA board member. Middle-aged, sharp features, hair pulled so tight it looked painful. The type of woman who put reflective tape on her mailbox just to complain when yours didn't match. What did you do? I asked, stepping between her and what remained of my tree. I took care of a safety issue, she said breezily. You're welcome. I blinked. I didn't ask for anything to be taken care of. That tree was on my property. You had no right. She raised a hand like she was stopping traffic. No, technically, the trunk was overhanging the fence. And with all these storms we've had lately, that tree posed a danger. Falling limbs could damage HOA assets. I acted in the best interest of the community. You cut down a healthy tree without permission on my land. That's trespassing. That's destruction of property. She smirked like I just told a joke. Relax, I already paid the landscaping company. The wood's still here if you want it. And next time, maybe think twice before letting your yard become a liability. I felt something snap. Get off my property. I'm on HOA business, she said. That makes this common ground. Last warning. She rolled her eyes and walked back toward her hybrid SUV, phone already in hand. Wow, someone's cranky this morning. I'll make a note of the hostility in the incident report. As soon as she left, I marched inside and called the police. When the officer arrived 20 minutes later, I gave him the whole story. Photos, documentation, even the arborist report. He was polite but cautious. Said it would need to be a civil case unless I could prove damages. I pointed to the stump. Let me guess, he said. HOA dispute? I nodded. Y'all need Jesus, he muttered, shaking his head. He took the report anyway, gave me the case number, and told me to keep any receipts if I had to replace the tree. Before he left, he added, if she shows up again, don't engage. Just film everything. Too late for that. I spent the rest of the weekend trying to stay calm, but every time I looked at that gaping hole in the yard, it made my blood boil. My parents had given me that tree, planted it with me when I moved in. It had shaded the yard for barbecues, cooled the windows during summer, kept the place feeling alive, and Diane had erased it like a smudge on her windshield. By Monday morning, I'd filed an official complaint with the HOA board and forwarded the police report. I wasn't expecting miracles, but I wasn't ready for what came next either. Because when I opened the community Facebook group that afternoon, I saw Diane's post. It read, HOA update. A potentially dangerous tree was removed from HOA adjacent property over the weekend. The homeowner in question became verbally aggressive and threatening toward board members. Our community must stay vigilant against hostile behavior. Safety first. My name wasn't in the post, but everyone knew who she was talking about. And the comments? They weren't on my side. I scrolled through the comments with a sinking feeling in my gut. Glad someone's finally taking care of that house. Honestly, that tree looked dangerous. Diane did the right thing. If the homeowner was that aggressive, maybe he's got something to hide. It was like watching a slow-motion character assassination. I didn't even recognize most of these people, but they sure felt comfortable throwing stones. And Diane? She was in the replies. Smiling emoji here, thumbs up there, thanking people for understanding the burden of leadership. Burden my ass. I replied once, calmly, directly, stating that the tree had been inspected and approved, that it was legally on my property, and that I had filed a police report for unlawful property damage. But within an hour, the post was removed, and I was locked out of the group. That's when it hit me. This wasn't incompetence. It was control. Diane wasn't just acting out of overzealous concern. She wanted a fight, and she wanted to win it before I even got out of bed. I drove straight to the HOA office that afternoon. The woman behind the desk, Emily, maybe 22 and way too young for this, gave me a tight smile and typed my name. Oh, Mr. Carter. Right. She cleared her throat. I think you're going to want to speak with Mrs. McMullen directly. I already did, I said, holding back. And I want to know what action the board plans to take about what she did to my tree. I'm not really authorized to comment on board actions, she said, but I can make a note that you stopped by. Make a note? I leaned in. Emily, this is serious. She entered my property, cut down a tree, lied about it, and then slandered me publicly. That's not just HOA drama, that's criminal. Emily's eyes shifted. We're just staff, sir. We don't get involved in disputes. I left before I said something I'd regret. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the police report. I had documentation, photos, a formal complaint. But Diane had the board, the group chat, the narrative. I opened my laptop and started digging. First, I pulled public meeting minutes from the last year. They were supposed to be archived on the HOA website. Most were vague, useless. But one note from 6 months ago jumped out. Board discussed vegetation encroachment near eastern perimeter. Concerns of storm impact and liability raised. McMullen proposed proactive assessment. It didn't name my property, but the timing matched. And more importantly, it gave her just enough internal cover to spin her actions as pre-approved, even if no actual vote had taken place. Still not enough. I needed a pattern. I searched for posts, complaints, anything mentioning Diane's name going back a year. The results piled up fast. A retired teacher fined $500 for excessive patio decor. A single mother written up 3 times for overgrown lawn edges. A veteran threatened with a lien for a faded American flag. It was a trail of harassment, always vague, always just inside the rules, always with Diane's name at the bottom of the notice. And then I got a message. It was from someone named Barry Sloan. Profile photo of a middle-aged guy in a Bass Pro hat. The message read, "Hey, saw what happened to your tree. You're not the first. Call me." I did. Barry picked up on the second ring. You pissed her off, huh? I didn't do anything, I said. She just... Yeah, that's what I said too. You got 5 minutes? I met him the next day in the back booth of a diner 2 miles from the neighborhood. He slid a folder across the table like we were doing a drug deal. Inside were letters, fines, emails, all with Diane's name. Barry's crime? Repainting his shutters the wrong shade of beige. His punishment? 3 escalating fines, a threat of litigation, and a formal complaint labeling him non-compliant and combative. I appealed twice, he said. They shut me down both times. Then they showed up while I was at work and repainted them themselves. Charged me $600. That's illegal, I said. He laughed. Only if someone with power gives a damn. We kept talking. Barry had a theory that Diane had been positioning herself for higher office, some state-level HOA coalition, maybe even politics. She's building a record, he said. Clean community, fast response, no tolerance for violations. It looks great on paper. And anyone who pushes back just disappears? Pretty much. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that stump. I saw Diane's smug smile. I saw the cowardly silence in the Facebook group. So I made a decision. I pulled out a notebook, started a timeline. Names, dates, screenshots, phone numbers. I didn't just want to defend myself. I wanted to expose her. The next morning, I filed a Freedom of Information request for HOA financials, and I bought a high-resolution security camera. If Diane wanted a war, she picked the wrong neighbor. 3 days later, the email arrived. Subject: requested HOA financial documents, partial fulfillment. I opened it immediately. It was a zip file of PDFs, scanned invoices, board approvals, budget allocations. Most of it looked routine: landscaping, signage, maintenance contracts. But one name kept repeating: D. McMullen Consulting. Wait, what? There, in black and white, consulting fees, project oversight charges, administrative coordination bills, all paid directly to Diane or her LLC. Over $17,000 in the past 12 months. And for what? The biggest line item, $6,400 for community safety enhancements, vegetation hazard removal oversight. My tree. She'd billed the HOA for managing the removal of my property and got paid for it. I sat there staring at the numbers, something in my chest turning cold. This wasn't pettiness. This was fraud. I sent everything to my attorney, a woman named Megan I knew from a previous zoning case. Her reply was short: "This is serious. Let's talk tomorrow." But first, I needed to prepare. I called Barry. Then I called 2 other neighbors who'd liked my comment before it got deleted. One was an elderly widow named Jeanette, who'd been fined $300 for improper mailbox aesthetics. Another was a younger couple who'd gotten a threat of lien over their Halloween decorations being seasonally excessive. Each of them had a story. Each of them had paperwork. Each of them had anger. I created a private group chat, uploaded my timeline, and started piecing things together. HOA meeting minutes that didn't match receipts, contracts signed without board-wide approval, fines with no legal foundation. It wasn't hard to see the pattern once you looked. Diane didn't just enforce rules. She manufactured violations, turned neighbor against neighbor, buried anyone who pushed back in paperwork, fines, and rumor. And then she cut down my tree. It all came to a head when I got a letter from the HOA, certified, official-looking, stamped with the board's seal. It accused me of creating a hostile environment for board members, warned of potential consequences if I continued to spread misinformation, and ordered me to cease and desist from unauthorized communication with other homeowners regarding board actions. They were trying to gag me. I brought the letter to Megan. Her eyes narrowed. Retaliation, documented. And if they're misusing HOA funds to pay Diane without proper approval, that's embezzlement. We put together a packet. Evidence, timelines, testimonies. Megan prepped a formal complaint for the state HOA regulatory board and alerted a contact she had at the local paper. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted Diane to see it unravel in real time. So I submitted a motion under the HOA's own bylaws to demand a full financial audit and a board review hearing. I included a petition with 8 homeowner signatures. They couldn't ignore it. By law, they had to hold a meeting. It was scheduled for Thursday night, 7 p.m., in the community clubhouse. Flyers went out, whispers spread. I heard from people I'd never met, folks who'd lived on my street for years but had learned to keep their heads down. One woman told me Diane had once fined her twice in the same week for letting her dog bark with insufficient control, whatever the hell that meant. The clubhouse was full by the time I arrived. Folding chairs crammed together, people standing in the back, a thick, uneasy energy in the air. Diane stood at the front in a crisp white blazer, her hair pulled tighter than usual, clipboard in hand, smile fixed like it was stapled to her face. "Good evening," she said. "This meeting was convened to address concerns raised by one of our homeowners. I trust we can resolve this efficiently and respectfully." I stood. "My name is Mason Carter, Lot 17A, and I'd like to start by asking a question." I turned to the crowd. "Did anyone here approve the use of HOA funds to pay Diane McMullen's consulting business $17,000 last year?" A ripple, heads turning. Some whispered. Others went rigid. Diane didn't blink. "Mr. Carter is misrepresenting standard reimbursements." I held up the printed spreadsheets. "These aren't reimbursements. These are direct payments to your LLC for project oversight, including the unauthorized destruction of a private tree." That hit like a bomb. People started murmuring louder. A man in the third row said, "Wait, you got paid to cut down that guy's tree?" Diane tried to speak, but I kept going. "Here's the arborist report showing the tree was healthy. Here's the police report I filed. And here," I said, holding up a folder, "is a formal legal complaint being submitted to the state HOA Oversight Board for fraud, retaliation, and abuse of office." Jeanette stood up. "She fined me because my mailbox didn't conform to community warmth standards. I didn't even know that was a thing." The young couple spoke next. Then Barry. Then it was like a dam broke. Voices rising, hands waving, decades of quiet compliance boiling over. Diane tried to gavel the meeting closed, but it was too late. Someone shouted, "We want to vote!" Another, "No confidence!" A third yelled, "You don't speak for us anymore!" Diane raised her voice, shrill now, panicked, accusing me of inciting an HOA coup. Said she'd call security. I smiled. "Good idea. They'll need to file a report, especially when they see this." I turned to the projector screen. Megan had sent me one last file, an image of a falsified invoice Diane had submitted. It had her signature, but the company it claimed to pay didn't exist. We'd confirmed it. Gasps. Someone said, "That's a felony." Diane looked like a statue cracking under pressure. "I demand this meeting end now." A new voice cut her off. Officer Daniels from local PD stepped through the back door. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "We received a formal complaint about misappropriation of HOA funds. Just here to observe." The silence was instant. Diane took one step back, and I knew, in that exact moment, her empire was crumbling. The room was dead silent. Diane stood frozen, her hand still hovering near the clipboard like she could magic it into a shield. Officer Daniels gave her a polite nod, then scanned the crowd. He didn't speak again. He didn't have to. His presence was enough. Authority had just entered the room, and Diane no longer had a monopoly on it. I took a breath, then stepped back into the center of the room. "Neighbor," I said, turning slowly so I could meet eyes, "this isn't just about my tree, or Jeanette's mailbox, or Barry's shutters. This is about trust, about power being abused right under our noses. For too long, Diane has used this board not to protect our community, but to control it and profit off it." A few people clapped. One or two nodded solemnly. I reached into my bag and pulled out the binder Megan had helped me assemble. Every invoice, every complaint, every line item, every scanned threat letter, every falsified record. We have the documents, we have the signatures, we have the police report, and we have more than enough to prove a pattern of misconduct, embezzlement, and intimidation. I turned to the board. This isn't a debate. This is a reckoning. For a moment, I thought Diane might try to brazen her way out, deny everything, twist it like she always had. But something in her face had changed. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was scared, tight around the mouth, eyes darting, calculating. She could feel it slipping. And then she did the one thing no one expected. She lashed out. "You people are ungrateful," she snapped. "I've spent 3 years cleaning up this mess of a neighborhood. I gave up my time, my money, my sanity." Barry cut her off. "Your money? You took our money. You don't know how hard it is to keep a place like this in order. People like you," she gestured wide, frantically now, "leave garbage cans out all night, paint fences without permission, let kids run wild, and then you turn on the one person who cares." A man from the back of the room stood up slowly. "You cut down his tree," he said, nodding toward me. "Then you billed us for it." That cracked the dam wide open. Shouting. Demands. Someone called for a vote on the spot. Diane tried to regain control, slamming her clipboard down like a gavel, but it only clattered to the floor, breaking in half. Officer Daniels stepped forward, holding up a hand. "That's enough," he said calmly. "We'll be taking statements tonight. If anyone else here has experienced what Mr. Carter described, I strongly encourage you to come forward." I'll never forget what happened next. Margaret Linwood, quiet, 75, soft-spoken and always wearing a cardigan, walked up to the front with a shaky manila envelope. She didn't say a word, just placed it on the table and turned back to the crowd. Inside were 7 years of HOA correspondence. Every fine, every letter, every ridiculous accusation. Diane had threatened her with legal action over the color of her welcome mat. The room changed after that. Diane didn't say another word. She simply picked up her handbag, eyes glassy, and walked out the front door without looking back. No security, no police. Just silence and wet leaves stuck to the heels of her shoes. We filed the paperwork to remove her the next day. The HOA board held an emergency session. A new interim president was named. A formal audit was approved. Officer Daniels sent us a follow-up asking for a flash drive of the documents. Megan handed it over with a copy sent to the state board. And the tree. That same week, the neighborhood came together. Neighbors I barely knew showed up with gloves and shovels and iced tea. We planted a new oak where the old one stood. It was smaller, sure, but sturdy. A sapling with potential. Someone placed a sign next to it. Handwritten. A little crooked. It said, "Never again." And as we stood there in the sun, dirt under our fingernails, watching that tree take root, I knew something had shifted, not just on my property, in the whole community. People smiled again. They stopped walking with their heads down. The Facebook group reopened. Moderated this time, not ruled. Someone even posted a photo of the tree with the caption, "Freedom grows fast when fear is gone." So yeah, Karen cut down a tree on my property. I called 911, and she absolutely regretted it.